Trying something new here. While I was catching up with Noel, I'm trying to get myself. This was a suggestion by Miss Dora, is to have me logged in as well on Zoom, since we kind of have a hybrid.
But you can't plug in audio.
Yeah, no audio, just my face.
Right. I did that too. Just so we
Are
can
you in
see.
too?
I am. Look at.
We are recording whenever you're ready.
Got it. Give me 30 seconds. Hey, there we are. Stephen can see me now. Hi, Stephen. All right, so let's go ahead and call this meeting of the Board of Appeals, May 15th to order. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Team, everybody. Thanks for being here. How are we feeling? Good. Everybody ready to go? Yep. All right, so we're gonna do those that are joining us. So we're the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's a quasi judicial committee. We are not elected officials. We are appointed citizens. We work with the mayor's team and they appoint us to this. Quasi judicial means there's gonna be some formalities here. It's legal, so they'll interrupt us and say, hey guys, let's run this a bit different or whatever. And so we're citizens learning and trying to be great at what we do. So what we'll do is I'm gonna read some stuff here just because I like to wing it, but they probably prefer me to read it. So here we go. The Zoning Board, Planning Board of Appeals hears and acts on appeals for variances from the city zoning code requirements. The members of the board, actually, I went over this. I should have just read it. The members of the board are appointed and the board acts as a quasi judicial body during these appeals, which means that appeals are presented like a case is presented in the court, and the board acts as the judge and determines whether to grant the appeal by majority vote. For each item, we will hear from the appellant and staff, and staff's over here, that's staff. And we do have a couple board members online as well. So you can see them over on the screen. That's Stephen raising his hand. Do we have Corey online today, or he's not with us today?
Not yet.
Not yet. So Stephen is a board member and he waved. One more time, Stephen. They're all voting members, so he'll ask some questions online. It's kind of a hybrid model. And we'll ask for additional witnesses if necessary at the appropriate time. But I'm the board chair, so I will, if there's too much debate happening, I'll say, all right, stop. I gotta keep it. We all gotta go home anyway, right? At some point. So we'll be here all night. If you're the applicant or appellant for an item on tonight's agenda, we will ask you, if you're in person, to come sit up here and staff will take you through, kind of get our bearings down about what we're looking at. We'll ask questions and then we'll get to the testimony. We'll swear you in because it is quasi judicial, so we'll ask that your testimony is true. And then we'll dive in, present your case. Again, think about it like a court case. We've all watched courtroom dramas, right? So you're creating a case as to why you shouldn't have to follow the code when every other citizen does. What we're looking for is, why is the place that you're doing that project, not you per se, but the land itself is not able to follow code, and here are the reasons why. Does that make sense? We will also ask if there's conflicts. So some of us might have to recuse, which means they can't vote or discuss. At the end of the day, there's 5 of us voting today. So you just need a majority. So 3 votes and your application goes through. And that's about it, right? Good? Good. So we're gonna do some housekeeping for about 15 minutes. Hopefully it's not longer than that. And then we'll get into the items for tonight, okay? Thanks for being here. Thanks for being patient, and we'll get through this, okay? All right, so let's start. Roll call. Tommy Everman, Chair here. Noel Halverson, Vice Chair. Present. Barb Dorff.
Here.
Stephen, this is why I always get myself into trouble.
Shooker.
Thank you. At this point, you
And
think I've
here.
had that by now, huh? And then Josh Cook here every single week, every month. Cook, no problem. Sorry, buddy, you're here. We don't have Corey as an alternate, but even if he was here, he would not be voting. So we've got a 5 person board, which is a quorum, so we're ready to go. Great, approval of the agenda tonight, everybody been able to see the agenda tonight?
Move to approve.
Thank you,
Second,
thank you, so I have a motion to approve the agenda. And seconded, any discussion or adjustments that need to be made by staff or recommendations? If not, let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda?
I,
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, great, agenda is approved, so minutes, Josh, if you want to get to the minutes yet?
I have, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
There we go.
So,
All right. Got a motion to approve in a second. All right, any changes or adjustments to the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes from last month's meeting, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Great, we're good. Okay, we are through some of our housekeeping. We've got one agenda item here, which is a bit of overview from staff and some training opportunities for us since we're always trying to get better here. So let's go on to regular business. Number one, discussion with city legal staff regarding multiple variances with an individual within an individual appeal request. Take it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening at this point. So just a few quick things to go over. We're not doing a substantive training this week or this month rather. As you may notice in the agenda a little bit further on, we have some space for a more robust discussion of what the board would like to see in terms of training. So we're going to save that until the end. One thing we did want to discuss before we jumped into the discussion of the actual items on tonight's agenda is something that came up during the last meeting as far as if there is an application for from one property owner that requires multiple variances in order to accomplish whatever they're seeking to achieve. So for example, in the past, we've had some parking lots that have had 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes variances to several different parts of the code in order to they need that many variances in order to complete the project as they wish to do it. And because it's one project, we have the one hearing, and the board has discussed all of the variances as kind of one lump discussion. Well, one of the things that we want to make sure is clear is that each variance is a deviation from the code, and therefore there needs to be justification under the elements set out for granting a variance for each one of those deviations from the code. So for example, if we have a project that needs 2 variances, the board needs to go through and say, okay, first variance is this, setback requirement. We're going to deviate from that. Here are the elements, here's the reasons why for each of the elements. And if that gets granted, go on to the second element then, or the second variance request, and go through the elements for that item as well. Now, because these are all within the discussion of the same project, it is likely that there will be significant overlap for some of the elements. So for example, if the preservation of property rights and hardship elements are exactly the same for both variances, when you get to variance number 2, you can say, okay, those 2 elements are the same. So for the reasons stated for the first variance, those 2 elements are met. Now we're going to talk about these other 3. So you don't have to go through and repeat yourselves excessively, but we do want to make sure that we're hitting all of the elements for each code deviation to make sure that there's been sufficient justification provided each time there's a variance from the code. Any questions? Does that make sense? I think one thing that sorry, I can't see.
Oh, just a super quick question. So let's say there's 2 code variants and they're dependent on each other. If we turn one down, do we still have to vote on the others, or?
Right, if they're dependent on one another, then that'd be a no, it'd be just done at that point.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Sure thing. And one thing we talked with John about was trying to list them as, like sub items. So for example, today, if, the first appeal had needed, 3 variances, it would have been like 2A is for this variance, 2B is for this variance, 2C is for this variance. So it's very clear to the board what the 3 variances are. Just so that it's all kind of spelled out. And while we're hovering around the subject of the agenda, I do just want to remind the board, as we go through each of the deliberations on each hearing, we have added the closed session language to each variance request, meaning that if there is anything that, if the board wants to deliberate in closed session, if you have questions for legal counsel that need to be discussed off the record, you can move to go into closed session and have those conversations there. And then come back onto the record after the discussion is complete.
Cool, to clarify, so we can speak through the reasons in our discussion. Hey, I think this variance fits within these 5s. I think this variance fits within these 3. It still fits because I think differently it fits within these 2. That's the discussion. And then we're voting to approve the application, or are we voting for each variance?
There have to be a vote on each variance.
Vote on each variance. Okay, great. Everybody got that? So we got a couple new processes, but also some tools. And I think for me, the closed session thing is just an important thing to know for us. If we want to have discussion where it's not in front of the public, maybe we're confused on something, if that's a concern for us, whatever, we can motion to do that, and then we can engage in a deeper discussion without it having always being on the record for everybody to see. So that's all, just pointing that out. I think it's a good option. Great, cool. Any other questions? Good, feel good? Okay, it's so good to see faces in here. Steven, we're gonna get you in here, buddy.
I was going to come, but I had an automobile breakdown, so we've only got one car right now, so I didn't want to strand my wife at home. So next time.
No, I love it. It's good to see y'all. Okay, let's get into it here. So we're gonna get into the next item on the agenda, which is gonna be someone from this group or someone online. We're gonna get to number 2, Appeal 2311, consideration with possible action on the variance request submitted by Maureen P. Trafford-Braun. Note, I'm really horrible with last names, and it's just a comedy of errors over here, so just forgive me, okay? And Dan Braun, property owners and applicants, to create a wider parking stall within the front yard setback at 2626. Thank you, Lane, Fenestra Lane, in District 12. Who is here for that? Yes, sir. If you want to come up and grab a seat up here, we're going to go through some housekeeping stuff. We'll swear in John. We're going to also ask about conflicts, and then we'll have, once we're ready, we'll start taking your testimony. Okay, thanks for being here. Great. So before we get started, is the goal of the Board of Appeals to provide and conduct a hearing that is fair in form, appearance, and substance. To ensure that this hearing satisfies these goals, each member of the Board of Appeals, please confirm the following for this appeal by stating, I confirm. 1, I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Great. Number 2, I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Great, we're good to go. Okay, John, let's go ahead and jump you in here. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right, great. Let's jump into this one. Take us through it.
Okay, so we're looking at here will be 2 items here, as we just talked about, of the zoning code. These are independent items. They're not the necessarily to have, one could be voted for or against. It does not matter which one. So the first code in play is section 44-1746. Driveways shall lead from the public right of way to directly to a garage door opening plus 24 inches on either side of said door or to a legal parking stall. Our second one is triangle tapers, section 44-1746C, where the width of the driveway at the garage. The driveway shall be tapered between the garage or edge of legal and governed parking space and the property line starting a minimum of 5 feet from the parcel. So we'll get into it right here as far as what's happening. This is the parcel right here at 2626. They're looking to go ahead and add on parking spaces here on the eastern part of the property. This is the existing street view of the property. You'll note that it's a 2-stall garage. There is a third legal non-conforming stall on the western part of the property line. The request that was made by the applicants has noted 2 different parts to it. One, they're asking for approximately 4.5 feet past the garage door opening. The code states 2 feet. And they're asking for the triangle taper to start at the front of walk rather than at the back of walk. The back of walk is your property line. And that's where in the code, the note of that the taper must start a minimum of 5 feet from the parcel itself. So you need to go ahead and create a parcel within the code past this line and up towards the property. This is another overhead view provided by the applicants showing what they would like to go ahead and do. This green line, that would be the property line, and then the rest of the property with its stalls. To note, this is what is asked by the applicants here in 1 and 2. This is what is applicable within the code itself. So let's go ahead and go back to starting with our request. You can go 2 feet past the garage door. They're asking for 4.5 feet past the garage door. And then over here, so this is the sidewalk take. There's no sidewalk actually on the property, but the back of walk is typically where your property line is located at. And that is where your triangle taper starts at, and then must go 5 feet past that line and then begin its extension up towards the house itself, the parking stall. They're asking for that to go ahead and start back over at the front of walk, and then go ahead and bring the taper back up towards the house. I will note, we have seen front yard parking stalls in the past as far as questions go. Those have been related to single stall garages that are attached. With that in mind too, in that code, you're allowed to have a front yard parking stall past the driveway for single stall garages, but it cannot block the main entrance of a house. The main entrance to the house is right here past the garage door opening. That has to do with the fire code itself. So that'll lead to our 2 questions at hand right here.
All right, board, so that's the overview. Let's dive into any questions so we can get ourselves situated with John before we hear testimony. Barb, go ahead.
John, on that diagram, where is the front door? Because to me, it looks like it would be in front of the front door.
Right, so on this diagram, it would be past the actual, see it right here. This would be approximately where the door is at. This ledge between the garage door and the front porch is about 2 feet. And yeah, we can go ahead and give a bit more information on that, so what it would be exactly, but looking back into here, the garage door itself would start then in this black area, and then this brick area would be approximately 2 feet. A bit more than that, but about 2 feet or so. Right
So
there.
the 2 feet that's allowed by code does not impact the front door. To me, it is appearing that if it goes 4.5 feet, it would land in front of the front door.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
It would.
thank you.
Any other question? I have one, but I'll go through the board first. Anybody have any other questions?
Oh, I just have one more.
Okay, Barb, go ahead.
For the triangle paper,
Mhm.
if it's gonna be put in, there, how does that impact a future sidewalk going in? Or would it impact if say sidewalks were ever ordered into that
Mhm.
area?
So normally the point of the taper itself is to go ahead and have it be, if you have a normal sidewalk that be going through this area, you would notice it's, you kind of see the front of walk and the back of walk, and
I
the
can
front of
see
walk.
it,
And
yeah.
this right here is legal non-conforming, but this would not be legal here either. Would have to go ahead and start as an hourglass shape up back towards the property line or the back of the walk itself. It's to go ahead and lead, to allow folks to go ahead and have a larger driveway itself. We have our maximums, or sorry, standards as far as 25 feet of the property line typically. But you can go ahead and make that go expand out further if you're leading to legal parking stalls, garages, drives around the house itself.
So what makes that against the code?
Because
Having the triangle,
why is it right there?
yeah,
The code itself, as far as making that to where that would be, because typically your driveway opening can be 25 feet at the property line itself. So the property line is this line right here,
okay,
and that would make it wider than essentially than what would typically be allowed, because you'd be starting beyond the property line into the public right of way at that point. So you start your widening at your property line, not over at the public area, which is the sidewalk.
but on the other side, it is started.
On the other, yes,
Yeah.
that is a legal non-conforming area on that side, yes.
I'm
It
sorry,
is
John, I
that.
just want to correct, you're saying that's a legal non-conforming?
Correct, it is legal,
So it was,
But it is not-
it was improved at some point in some previous action. by-
Correct.
Prior to when we had
yes,
this rule,
Not
yes,
necessarily.
correct, yeah,
okay.
Yep.
Or not necessarily,
not this rule, but before,
okay,
before the code went into effect, we normally look back to 2006. If it happened
Okay.
before 2006,
okay,
it's okay, if it was there. We don't have any records of showing this right now to go ahead and say, this was an approved plan, don't have it on file. We are having some of our records scanned right now, it very well could be in the files, but
okay.
it's in the process, so.
I was questioning why it could be on that side, it was. okay,
Right,
but
yep.
On that side, it wouldn't be okay,
Yes, that side is legal, but it is not conforming on that side.
got it. Thank you.
To dig in to make sure I'm extremely clear, we are not to think or talk or discuss anything on that left side. Nothing we're talking about tonight has anything to do with that, so left side.
Yeah, we're not just, that side is legal?
Yep.
It's
Okay.
okay, can say
But
the way it is.
legal meaning there's no issue there, but technically per the code, it's non-conforming,
Right, you would not be allowed to go ahead and do this by rights.
right? But because they're doing additions onto that, like sometimes parking lots are non-conforming, but then because they do something,
Yes,
they have to conform. In this case, that is not the case.
it's not the case, yes.
Got it, okay. The other question I have is, can you go back to the property, the hand-drawn overview?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, if you can remember the green property line on the actual like satellite image. The triangle taper is going beyond the property line.
The request,
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that? I mean, it's not their property, right? So like, is that something that is a variance we can approve?
it's in our zoning code,
That they can go into the city's right of way?
it's in our code itself. To, that, you can go ahead and debate that here, whether that is allowed. This goes back to from before, it wouldn't, if it was brand new, it would not be allowed to go ahead and happen. But if a
No.
hardship was proven,
I think what I'm trying to figure out, and maybe I'm asking the wrong question, is the property line exists, that, and so anything beyond that green line up
Yeah.
is the applicant's property. Below that line is not,
it's not, here's where they, let's say, for instance, there was a legal parking stall right there
Yep.
in this area. That concrete could go and exist right there in that spot in the public right of way in that area. You could do that. The issue is, this request is asking to go ahead and make a legal parking stall beyond it. So at that point, since we're starting new right here, and this, the legal parking stall is beyond the garage door.
Yep.
You need to start with flare at that point, then the taper itself.
right?
So
The reason why I'm asking specifically about it is depending on how this all shakes out in the testimony, I mean, there is an option on the table, which could be an option 3, which is we could approve the taper, but not the 4.5 feet. The taper could start shorter. So the green line would come all the way down to match the red line for a taper. And so I'm just trying to make sure I can separate all of them in my head into different issues and options.
yes,
So when I hear the testimony, I know, why do you need to go all the way down? Because right now, that taper doesn't matter if you go up, and now we're really only dealing with the width.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
does, and that would be an acceptable option to go ahead and put forward here.
Right, okay, great. Any other questions, guys? I'm in a good spot. Okay. Thank you for being here. So we're gonna swear you in. Before I do that, can I have you state your name and your address for the record? And then I'll ask you if your testimony, well, we can do it all together. Do you swear that your testimony is gonna be the truth?
Do.
Great. Name and address for the record.
Dan Braun, 2626 East Road, and Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Great, okay, great. So you've heard kind of us walk it through. If there's anything you need to clarify from what John does, he usually does a pretty good job. We'll give him a pretty good job there. Taking us through it, but if you need to clarify anything, that's great. Take us through your testimony as to why the code should be changed here for you.
A couple of things is we have that, on the right hand side of our driveway, we have a utility box that really takes up. There's a hill on the street. And on the right hand side, there's a tree, you can't see to the right, there you go. And there's no real, when we park our cars in the spots we have now, there's no clear access to the front doors. We would rather have that, especially when we still like follow the driveway. Along that edge, there's really hard to walk around vehicles to get to the front door because there's so much snow. So we wanted a clear access to the front door, not necessarily totally for parking, but so we could get to the front door.
Okay.
And again, we live on a hill too, it just makes it easier getting in and out of the driveway.
So it's a use case kind of idea for you.
What was that?
It's like a use case is what you're, do you mind putting the 5 things up for us? Just so people here also, because again, you're also citizens as well, so we're all kind of learning how this thing goes. Our goal, if you can see this up here for variances, is that we kind of have to be able to check off in our head. Does this request check off all 5 of these things? And so when you're presenting your case, you kind of want to look at this and say, okay, cool. In what I'm proposing, does it actually, can I convince the board that I have checked every single one of these boxes? So for example, if you look at hardship, the alleged difficulty number 5, the alleged difficulty in complying with the code, right? Following the rules is not self-imposed, meaning I'm creating my own hardship by doing it, okay? And is not based solely on economic grounds. Some people come in and say, well, I did this and it's going to cost me a lot of money to rip it out, right? Well, that's your financial situation is not a hardship. So what we're trying to determine is the land itself, and you're trying to develop the land, which goes back to preservation of intent and preservation of property of rights is, I can't do what everybody typically could do with their land because the land that I own is shaped like a triangle. You know, so putting in a driveway doesn't even make sense because the land's a triangle. And so the code doesn't apply. It can't even work on my property. So what I would like to hear for me, is from a hardship perspective, the alleged difficulty in complying with this. Right now, for me, if I'm being upfront with you, I'm hearing it being a bit self-imposed. So help me get past that the land itself is not allowing you to comply.
Okay, if you look again, that tree that's right here. And in the boxes, we have a limited space, and when we do park over here, there's no free access or a straight shoot to the front door. And I'd rather be able to get to the front door, it's a lot more easier and a straight shot than.
You're saying you're wanting, excuse me, are you
No,
saying
you're
you
good.
want to
Please.
do this because you wanted to use it as a sidewalk, not for parking?
No, pull to people so we can move over the car a little bit, but they're still be able to get out on the driveway. And walk into the front door, I mean, it's 2 feet's not really gonna. Fix what getting out and making it still having a straight shot, because it starts right at the garage door right now, and we have trucks, and the trucks, when we put them side by side, there's not a whole lot of space. To have a straight shot at the front door. And then being a tree there and being on a hill, it makes it a little bit more easier getting in and out of the driveway.
Go ahead, Barb. Good question for the applicant.
So you may have sort of answered this, but I'm still not understanding how an additional 2 feet wouldn't accomplish that, and then you're within code and you don't need a variance.
It is. When we stumble over the driveway, there's literally no straight shot to the front door of the vehicles in the driveway because of how close it is to the door. And that additional piece is going to give us more access to the front door and more safer entry and exit of our driveway because of the tree and the boxes and being on a hill.
When you say you're on a hill, you mean that the driveway is sloped to the road?
The road is on a hill. It's sort of on a corner and a hill, so it's
I see.
going up a hill. So
Okay.
cars can climb around the top of the hill down, and we're down on the downside of it.
And how does the additional space help with that? I'm not understanding.
Getting in and out of the driveway.
I mean,
space to get in.
The apron's not gonna change any, so your entry to the road is the same.
Right, but the angle of the vehicle leaving the driveway, you get out easier.
Okay,
I just,
I see.
To clarify as well, so a big piece of, I think, something that you're not necessarily privy to, maybe it's been mentioned in conversation with John, is anytime someone comes and even if you're saying to us, well, I'm not gonna park a vehicle there, anytime we create concrete or anything that is, a car can go in front of a front door. The fire department, we've asked them, we've gotten guidance, it creates a safety hazard. And so, for me, if I'm again being honest, like, there's nothing we can do. If we grant this variance, there's nothing really stopping you from saying, great, I've got all this extra space, I'm gonna park a big truck, and now I've got 3 trucks across. And now the access to your front door, beyond your own inconvenience, right, is not gonna be blocked. And that creates a safety thing, and we've denied variances just contextually, like, because of that safety concern. So, I need to hear a bit more about, you know, the 4.5. I'm sitting here going, I think there's enough for the 2. Compliance with the code is not gonna be your best situation, but it gives you something. Right now, the extra 2.5 feet creates that potential safety issue. You know, then you're looking at the apron going all the way down with a better angle over here. Well, now you're past the property line. It matches the other side, but aesthetics aren't necessarily what we should be voting on either. So I'm just trying to make sure you have information that we have in our heads that you can speak to.
I don't know if you've seen what my neighbors must have seen what's online, and he sent in a request that he's for the, I didn't even know that he knew about it. But we keep our yard very clean and everything else like that, but I don't know if that matters, but he did it without even me knowing it, and sent me, so by the way, I'm for the variance. And I would say.
He was saying, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, he went online and he texted me.
Okay, but he wasn't saying in terms of, like, what was his,
I just know he sent me a picture of what he sent in, and
did we get anything?
I didn't receive anything, and I want to note to folks, as far as that goes, if we receive something, I would let them know that it needs to be notarized. It'd be like a normal court proceeding, not just have hearsay as far as your neighbor said this, but I didn't receive anything from him on this at all, so.
So if they email, when you say notarized, they have to send certified mail?
Not certified, but they need to have, if.
It has to be something sworn, Stephen.
Correct.
Okay. But I mean, what if they email it, which we've given them as an option?
We have given that as an option in the past. This goes into our changes here over the course of time to go ahead and improve this. So we're in the state statutes, much like other court proceedings. We need to improve as far as getting actual sworn testimony rather than having hearsay. So we have had some folks who have called up about items asking to come in today and have chosen not to come in because they didn't want to come in and speak on the record, but they gave support or
Okay.
that sort of other requests.
Okay, I'll table that for now. Thank you.
Saying it, that's
great.
It's still
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant before we get to our discussion? Are we good? Steve, any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now, thank you for your testimony. We're gonna kind of go through and debate those 5 things. At the end, we'll take a vote. If you have any additional questions, we'll ask you. Feel free to sit here if you'd like until your item's over. And then we'll give you kind of the result. I mean, you'll hear the vote, right? And then we'll see where it goes from after that. So now we're gonna discuss it. Okay, great. All right. How are we feeling, board members?
Strikes me that compliance can be achieved and still accomplish a lot of the same goals that are going on here. So I don't know that in my head, for either of the variances, that that the hardship has been adequately demonstrated.
Thank you, John. Barb?
I struggle to find a way to say yes to any of the points at this point. Preservation of intent, that there's a driveway there. There's the intent that, and it's there. I don't see an exceptional, extraordinary, unusual circumstance. I understand that, that it's inconvenience. We have a fire hydrant in the car driveway, that's really inconvenient because it's been hit twice by people. But, we can't extend our driveway over that way because of code. So, and I understand we can't do that. Property rights. I really believe that the preservation and enjoyment, I understand it's more inconvenient to not have it wider to get to the front door, but you still can have preservation of your right to get to your front door, or your ability to get to your front door, with the 2 feet, staying within code, you can. And I guess I don't see that I don't think there's a detriment at all. I guess that's something when I could say, yes, to me, there's no detriment. What I wish I could figure out how to do is to, figure out a way to see us to the cable. I can't figure out a way to see us to the 4 feet. I just can't under the law. And then tapering would look pretty unusual if it were tapered, wouldn't it?
Well, it would match the other side if it tapered beyond the property line. So from an aesthetic perspective, if we wanted to remove, like, because there's 2 different variances, okay? There's the variance of the distance, which is the 4.5
Right.
feet, complying
variance,
to,
right.
and then there's the variance with the taper going beyond.
Right,
There could be a scenario where we approve the taper,
yes.
but not the distance. And so, I mean, we can peel those out separately, which is actually what,
What we
kind
have
of
to
what we were
do,
just talking about.
yes.
Right, right. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, you're good.
No, go ahead.
Okay. For my, I can't prove, I can't, the width thing, the 24 inches, that's within code. I have to say that I would be inclined to grant a variance for the taper, but not for the width.
Okay. Do you mind me asking, and if you don't know this, maybe you do, the distance, so let's say see the line coming across that touches the green dotted line at the bottom? What is the distance from right there, where your mouse is, from there to the garage door? Do you know what that distance is by any chance? Is that distance from there enough for you to use it to move a vehicle over, right? So a truck is, you're usually really good at these. How long is a truck typically?
I don't know.
75?
You can try to come.
The point being does that taper create enough of that exiting angle, right? Being that on the other side, there's that electrical box or whatever. Do we see that as not a self-imposed hardship to grant that taper, right? Like, does the property itself, because that would be like
Grant a variance on any piece of this, you've got to find those tests, and I don't
Right.
think you're hearing anybody finding those tests.
on the taper?
Any piece of it.
Well, go back to I'm inclined to be where you guys are at. I just want to vet it out. Go back, if you don't mind, to the satellite, not the hand drawn, the satellite.
Right, I was just measuring for you right now,
Oh, great.
about 25 feet. What it is,
Okay,
from the property line
yeah.
to the garage door opening.
And that was gonna be my only thing, is that if the property line sits way up high, it's typically a shorter driveway than normal, then that to me is a hardship that's not self-imposed. 25 feet sounds great to me.
The code is,
Just to make sure I understand things all right in my head. When we talk about property line, we're talking about the city's easement into the property, right? To the point where the city actually owns.
Yes, sorry. That's
That's that area that we're required to maintain as homeowners between the curb and the property line.
yes.
So when we say property line, I've heard that called easement before, but I mean, I suppose it's the same thing.
Right.
We're talking about the same thing, yes?
Yeah, we're talking about the same thing, and thank you for clarifying.
all
That is exactly
I
what
just wanted to be,
Yep, okay. Once you measured, I'm in a good spot. I'm inclined to vote no, guys. And it sounds like that's where we're at. As much as that always pains us. I'm not able to make a case for all 5 being checked. And I have
not on the width, no.
yeah, so,
I
Anybody-
vote to deny.
okay, I've got a motion
I
to,
second.
okay. And we're gonna do this side by side, so we're gonna do one at a time. So we have first and foremost, the 4.5 variance. And so to clarify, Barb, was that your motion to talk about that one first?
4.5.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and, any other discussion on that variance? Okay, all those remember, we're voting in yes, the thing is for a denial. Okay, so yes is for a no. All those in favor of denying the 4.5 feet request, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And then do we have a motion on the floor for the taper on the front?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I for the reasons. Said
I could take a run at the compliances for the taper.
so
We have a
do you-
motion to deny.
we have a motion on the floor to deny, Stephen, currently.
You're not the second.
Do we have a second for that? Did you second that, Barb?
Nope.
Nope, okay. No,
I'll second it.
all right, so I have a motion on the floor to deny the taper. As requested. If this motion is defeated, then we can have a motion on the floor to approve or discussion around approving. But that's where we'll start here. All those in favor of denying the taper request. Say aye. Aye. All those in favor of denying, opposed to denying the taper. Say
Okay.
nay.
Point of order.
Yes.
Nay.
Sorry, point of order.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Can't we have discussion before we decide if he has, if he has a way to make a run at these? I thought we should.
We can't, I said, is there any more discussion? We
And
should
I
get to
know we
voting.
said it.
Right, but I wanted you to handle each one of those individually. Discussion on the 4.5 and then discussion on the taper.
Got it, okay,
That's what I thought we were gonna do, which is why I interjected early or
okay.
late, I should say.
Heard point of order. If we are, I don't know what that, we can do legally to undo a motion on the floor, however,
I think we can do that, do further discussion before the final vote's taken.
Yeah.
Yes,
what I already voted, does that matter?
the point of order was raised contemporaneously with the motion.
Okay, great. All right, so let's discuss the taper then. And we'll hold the motion on the floor. Right now, let's do some discussion around the taper.
May I have the justifications up on screen, please? So, just discussing the taper and assuming that the applicant wants to use his legal right to put in that 2.5 feet extra on there in order to gain him more space, in order to easily exit and the car, especially during the winter, which I mean in the spring when it's muddy. So preservation of intent. I don't think this would be against the spirit and purpose of this. The idea is to make sure that things are relatively standard within the city. In this particular case, given the way the driveway is, and I believe that an exception would be warranted under that, under exceptional circumstances. If we're going to allow the applicant to legally make that a wider spot and for him to be able to use it, logically we need to let him put in a corner taper there. He could put the corner taper farther up and be within code, but I think it would be a lot less useful in this particular case, and especially considering where it sits in the current driveway situation. I know we're not supposed to take into account aesthetics, but I mean, that kind of gets us, to the point of detriment. I think if it was a little weird, that would be not necessarily great. This also preserves his right to be able to legally put in that extra 2 feet for preservation of property rights. And then the hardship, he could certainly comply. That being said, I think in this particular case, we're looking at a situation where the end of the driveway, and because of the hill he's on and because of the trees, he wants to be able to pull that out a little bit. And if we force him to push that triangle taper point forward, we're going to be causing excessive damage to the lawn, which is detrimental to the neighborhood and to everyone else, and it's a safety issue. So in my mind, I can justify these 5 for the taper and the 2.5 foot legal expansion of the driveway. And to me, that's kind of the point here. To me, the big thing was the 2.5 foot extension. The 4-foot extension didn't pass the test for me, unfortunately. But here, I think we're enabling a citizen of Green Bay to actually use his property in the way that it was intended to be used with a very small variance change. I don't see a downside to it myself. That's my case for this.
Okay,
I just wanna say, I've heard several people say 2.5 feet, we're talking about 2 feet, right?
2 feet. My apologies. I misspoke.
the 2 feet within the
Wider.
code. Yes.
Yes, within the code. Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts on what Stephen said or any other discussion that's maybe different than that?
I guess my thoughts in response to that is. I don't disagree with Stephen that which it sure looks a lot better having the taper match, but. That's just not one of the 5 considerations that we can have here. And I think that all of these issues can be accomplished through compliance. I think that, we're talking about a 25-foot long driveway. I don't think that any truck in the driveway is 25 feet long. So I think that there's the ability to comply without having to change the code for this particular circumstance.
Yeah, Barb?
Well, I can agree that there's the ability to comply without having to change the code. I look at my role on this Board of Appeals as one to many times to try to find a way to yes. And I think that Stephen has made some good points and has helped me be able to put yeses on all of the taper piece, which I wasn't necessarily able to do myself, but he's made some good arguments. And so in that case, because of the way I see my role, I would vote in favor of allowing this.
The
Which
taper,
would
the
mean
taper.
the taper, which would mean voting against denial.
Okay. All right, so I heard Noel, do you have anything else you want to
I
add?
guess if I were to, think of the desire for some sort of symmetrical taper as part of the as exceptional circumstances, like we have a taper that starts at the front edge of the sidewalk rather than at the rear edge on the other side of the driveway, and that somehow makes it different enough. That's about as close as I can get to seeing eye to eye with Stephen's arguments on all 5 of these conditions being met.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to be still a denial. I'm having a real tough time there with hardship, complying with the code is capable. It seems self-imposed. Number 2, I don't see exceptional or extraordinary or unusual circumstances on this specific property. Again, looking at the property, not how the individual is using the property. I can see complying with this. To me, I can't get down on number 5, so I'm inclined to deny. So how do we want to go about this?
Well, we've got a motion on the floor to deny, so I think we call the question on it. If the motion fails,
Then we can,
then somebody else can make a motion based on the argument that they believe all 5 of these conditions are met with the case of the taper, and then we can make another motion to approve.
great, are we good with that? Everybody good with that process? Okay, remind me again, the motion on the floor was made by and seconded by.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to deny the request. Made by Josh and then seconded by Noel. Okay, we're gonna vote on that first. If that fails, then we can go to the other way. Got it? All right, so all those in favor of denying the request, state aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed that,
Nay.
sorry, say nay.
Okay.
Nay. So we have 3 nays and 2 ayes, so the motion fails.
I move to approve.
Okay.
I second.
All right, so I have a motion on the floor to approve the taper variance.
From the leading edge of the sidewalk.
From-
the rear edge.
Yep. As request, right? So it would be,
Like it's drawn.
really specific. Can you go back to the hand-drawn thing? That's why I asked that question at the very beginning. So we're approving that the taper can go to that red line, start at the bottom of the red line, but it can't go out as to go further than the 2 feet to match the green line.
Right.
So does that make sense? So right where that 1 and the circle is
Right.
where that green line would go all the way down to the red line. Everybody good with that? Now, how specific do we need to be in what we're granting, or is that just assumed with staff and you can figure that out?
This is step.
But you're good? Okay, all right, so we're approving the taper to go down to the red line, but come up to follow the green line because the other one failed. All right, that's the motion on the floor. We have a motion to approve by Barb and seconded by Steve. All those in favor of approving that variance, go ahead and say aye.
I,
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Nay. Josh, did you vote?
we did.
Nay, okay. Are we good? We got through that process good?
All right, no, you really did, I was a little bit.
No,
distracted.
that's okay, because it was, we were going all over the place, I'll make sure we're good. So the variance for the taper has been approved. But the variance to go 4.5 feet has been denied. So are you clear on kind of where you're at? Okay, great, so moving forward, depending on how you want to move forward, please continue to work with John and the staff, they'll help you through that, and if you need to pull permits or anything before anything, double check, please, we see too many people back here because they forgot to pull a permit or did something from a process perspective correctly, so John and the team are great there. Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you for your testimony and for being here today. All right, everybody good? Hey, we got through some fun process there, guys. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, well done, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Oh,
Well,
oh, no, it's good. We're doing good. All right, let's move on to number 3. Item number 3, Appeal 2313. Consideration with possible action on the variance request submitted by Colin Mice?
Meisel. Missing an L.
Oh, Meisel. Of Rutgert and Milky.
Rutgert and Milky, yep.
And Patrick Waggy, property owner, thanks. To request exceeding maximum impervious surface coverage within the general industrial district at 1124 North Baird Street in District 6. So are you guys here for that one? Okay, and then is there someone online as well for this one as well?
Yeah, Colin is online.
Thank you, Colin. And to make sure I'm clear, are all 3 of you speaking as one testimony for this application?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so there's no one here that is here to speak for or against this that I need to keep in the back of my head, online or in person?
Correct.
Great, we always just a little longer for online, it's all over there. Okay, all right, so same process. What we're gonna do is we're gonna swear John in, we're gonna do the whole thing over again. Okay, so thank you for being here, thank you for your patience. We're gonna keep moving here. All right. John, do you swear the testimony you give is gonna be the truth?
Do we need to do conflict?
What do we do?
Or conflict.
Oh,
Yeah. We all need to help.
You're great, you're doing great.
do I need to read all of this again? No, right? We're gonna go through the conflicts to be fair, right? Okay, all that. Number 1, I do not have a conflict or interest in this matter.
I can.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Not received any communication from any person or party about this matter.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Okay. That's my favorite. I love it. All right, good. So John, do you swear the testimony is going to be the truth?
I do.
Perfect. All right, take us through, then we'll get to your testimony. We'll swear you guys in. We'll have to do that for all 3 of you guys. So names and addresses and swearing in. Okay. All right, John.
All right, so with this, there's just one request from the code right here, that'd be section 44-802, table 44-12, maximum impervious surface for a general industrial district at 80% max. So what you're seeing right here is an old aerial of the property over 1124 North Baird. It's industrial property, and the property itself had a fire back last year. And so with that, they're doing some reconstruction of the property that is different than what they had before. They'll be adding in some parking and surface lot area up to the northern part of the property. This is an old aerial view, street view of Baird, looking down at the facility. And this is a street view over on Eastman, looking at the eastern part of the facility, which may have some reference here later on. We're discussing this. What you're seeing right now is kind of existing conditions because of the fire and what's burned down out there. But this is an aerial of the property. This is what the applicants are looking to go ahead and change onto the property. So you'll see this area over here in white, that's the existing building. looking to go ahead and add on some space here for a loading dock, for 2 loading docks right here, and then put in, pavements, through the property. So we've had discussions, staff and the applicants, over the past month or so as to, try to get the site, into compliance. The applicants have taken our suggestions. There were a number of, deviations to the code initially, and it's been now, down to this one with impervious surface. I'll note that before the fire, just over 88% of the property was impervious surface. They are requesting now to go ahead and take it down to 83.08% of the property as impervious.
Not 0.9.
No, so that equals about 2,202 square feet of property that is still impervious over the maximum threshold.
But less
For,
than they were.
but less than they were, correct, yes. The reason why it has to come in compliance now is because you're putting in the improvements. And with that, you have to get the entire property down to that number. So you will note as far as like some places where looking back to their former site, they will not go ahead and meet issues here with this side of the property because they're gonna go ahead and do some repairing rather than full on reconstruction. And in that area, they're gonna add some green space islands to go ahead and allow for that number to go ahead and get up into levels that are closer towards 80% itself. But that said, they still do not meet the code as far as reaching that number. To give some reference as far as what 2,202 square feet means, that's about 13 parking stalls. So within this right here, to find that extra 3% or so, would be about 13 parking stalls worth of area. To get down to what the code is itself. Back over here on the front of the property, this area was not damaged. There's a number of legal non-conforming things in the parking lot in that area, but it's not being changed, so that is not affected. It's these areas that are in gray that are being the new areas to the overall property itself.
Thank you for that, Claire. It was gonna be a comment. It was coming a question in terms of, okay, let's get it to 80%, what happens? So thank you for hedging that off. Any questions for John?
Just again, making sure I'm right. So that was the north half of the building that
Yes.
on this, okay, all right.
So overall property has to reach 80%, but.
Yeah,
Part that have the damages.
gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, great. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go through, are all 3 of you gonna be testifying? Because I only need to swear in those that are actually gonna be testifying, meaning speaking. If you're gonna be speaking, I need to get you on the record and sworn in. But if you're like, I don't need to talk, we don't need to get you in. It's a quick process if we want to get out. Okay, great. So we'll start with you. Do you swear your testimony to be the truth?
Yes,
Okay, and then your name and the address for the record.
Patrick Leahy, this address or my personal address?
Your business address is fine.
1124 North Third Street, Green Bay, 54302.
Okay, great, thank you. And do you swear the testimony you'll be giving today is the truth?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sam Winterfeld, N 216, State Road 55.
let's go. All right, cool. And then, is it Colin?
Yep.
Hey,
Colin
Colin.
Meisel with River to Milky. Address is 1400 Lombardi Avenue, Suite 101S, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
And do you swear that your testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, who's got the clock?
I'll take the lead if it's all right with everybody. Would it be fair and favorable if I come up to the screen and kind of?
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want,
What's that?
do you want to just move your screen so they can see him online? So he doesn't have to bring the iPad with him?
Oh, yeah.
He wants to go up to the, he wants to go up to
Want
the
to show
screen.
this?
Oh, I was gonna walk up to the
Oh.
screen and show.
Oh, if you want to use
Angle
the
it, so
the mouse.
let's angle yours so that the camera, so that if anybody needs to see for credibility.
Yeah, go ahead. All right.
So let's.
Hybrid solution we're working on.
Who you have in the room here is Patrick is the owner of the property.
Okay,
I'm the project manager with Keller Incorporated, and then Colin is our civil engineer. So those are kind of the
oh, thank you.
three people that are here. So I think it's important to talk about how we got to where we are today. A fire last July, which, destroyed the northern part of the building. Was at that point, the shipping receiving area of the building where the trucks would come in on north and nose up and then back into an outside raised loading dock. Or they would turn and come and back off of Reber and do a at grade overhead door. Once the building burned down, Patrick saw the advantages of having a loading dock from a safety perspective and a flow perspective on site. So we looked at positioning this dock anywhere in this building that we could make it work safely and effectively, and also meet all of the codes and ordinances. The area on site that works due to the shape of the property, which isn't exactly a triangle, but certainly narrows as you go north, is here. And what that looks like from a maneuverability standpoint on site is if a truck is coming north on North Baird, would nose in and it would nose all the way to the back corner just to be able to hit that dock backing in. If somebody's coming down Reber, very similar approach. This still doesn't allow us access going southbound on North Baird. We just can't hit the docks doing that. So a driver would need to come around the block to hit it. Why that's important is, as I'm sure you know, truck maneuvering just takes up an immense amount of space. Maneuvering a 73 to 85 foot long truck on a small site relatively takes up a lot of asphalt to accomplish that. Again, when the truck's in here, now we're coming down this way to exit the site in this direction because we can't make the turn back out this way. So again, a lot of the hard surface that could otherwise be green space is hard surface to get that truck to maneuver safely outside. Again, you see parking stalls. I know John did a great job of giving that visual of how many parking stalls the 2,200 square feet would comprise. There is a parking lot in this front corner that serves we'll call it the office portion of the manufacturing building. So that parking space is consumed by the office area. John, I think we agreed that that met the requirement for the office. So then the parking spaces in the back, which currently don't exist, would be for the employees inside the facility. Rather than parking employees on the street, this way they're off the street, they're safe to enter the building for working. Once we met with the city and John, we went through what can we do to add the green space. We were still at that point, I think we were still at about that 88%. And we knew we were going to need a variance. We tried to add green space areas here where there, no vehicle traffic because we can maneuver with the truck. You'll see some green space back here furthest from the building to keep the amount of parking spaces. And then again, on the side of the building over here, just because again, that truck traffic exiting. Added some additional green space on the inside of the loading docks, as well as up the edge. So everywhere where we didn't need the asphalt is now green space. I think I covered it, Colin, unless you're hearing something that I'm missing.
I think that does cover it. I mean, the real, when we look at it from an engineering perspective, the turning templates are very tight. Like Sam said, turning south on North Baird is not an option, so in order to come out, the turning movement was going around the east side of the building as he showed. I really think this will be an improvement as far as a safety condition for trucks no longer backing off of North Baird. And I think, from an engineering perspective, when we look at alternatives, there's really, there's not a lot of alternatives here. This is one of them. One of the other options would be building the building back as it currently was, which I think we would be allowed to do based on, repairing a burned building, which would keep the impervious up around 88% where it is now, and also keep that less than desirable turning movement coming in off of North Baird Street. So overall, we feel like while we're still not at the 80%, it's a drastic improvement over what's there now, both from increasing the green space and increasing the safety, not just for the folks using this facility, but also others on Baird Street. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . .
Did you have anything you wanted to add to this at all?
The safety issue, I know we keep talking about it, but, obviously I'm not occupying the building at this moment, but most of my trucks, when they came, they would come north on Baird, turn left on Reaver, and then back into the building. Either myself or one of my guys would literally have to basically stop traffic. For
Flag the traffic.
Yeah.
In this scenario,
Yes, yeah.
that's the whole building.
So, because the neighbor's building on the, I guess, the northwest corner there, right at the top of the screen, it's a blind corner.
Yeah.
It's really close to the road, so, we're out there acting as traffic cops every time a truck came. It's not ideal, obviously. That's why, once the building burned and we looked at, rebuilding in a different configuration, trying to get loading docks on the property was one of my top concerns.
Think anything else you guys want to add? We're gonna obviously ask questions too, so there's more discussion might come out, unless there are no questions, but, is there anything else you want to add before we ask questions?
I think we covered.
Is there any questions for the applicants, plural? That means you did a good job. So same thing before, we might come to you and ask a follow-up question as we get through our discussion, but we're gonna go through kind of those 5 points, see if we can get there with those 5 points. If we do, or we feel good, just like you saw, we'll either deny or approve, just bear with us for a minute here, okay? Again, thank you for your patience. All right, here we go. Who wants to lead us off?
I would move to approve. I can get there on all 5 of the elements. As far as preservation of intent, this is an industrial district. Frankly, I think it improves things quite a bit and gets more trucks off of the road and gets those safety things out of the public right of way. Keeps things out of traffic. I think that there are exceptional circumstances, not only from the size and shape of the lot. I think Tommy used the term triangle lot, and this is pretty darn close to that. So maybe he was thinking ahead there. And so I think that under all the circumstances, that there are exceptional circumstances here that are unique to this particular lot, that are not around in the rest of the neighborhood. Preservation of property rights, this allows the business to continue, allows truck traffic to safely come and go, and do all of those safety things on the property rather than out into the neighborhood. I think that there is an absence of detriment. I don't think there's going to be an adverse impact on the neighboring properties or the area in general. Again, I think it's making things a heck of a lot safer, and I don't see anything that it makes this a self-imposed hardship here. I mean, it's not often you look at a fire as creating an opportunity, but I think that's what we got here. So for all of those reasons, I would vote to approve the variance.
Yeah, thank you.
Move to approve, I should say.
Okay, let's get through the discussion. I'll hold your motion to approve and we'll get that, because I see some hands raised. Go ahead, Barb.
I just agree with everything he said.
Yep, great.
So,
Anything you want to add to it or something you disagree with? Copy and paste.
just agree.
She copy and pasted.
Said.
Perfect. I love it.
And
Stephen, I see your hand up. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I would concur as well. Also adding in the absence of detriment, there's actually a benefit, not just from a safety standpoint, but they've actually reduced the amount of impervious area they have. And I mean, these buildings I assume are fairly old and were not built for the size of semis we have today. Given the area that it's in, that building's probably been there a fair amount of time. And I think this actually improves the situation vis-a-vis coming closer to code. And they've made considerable efforts to work with the city to get there. And I think good faith and reasonable efforts in this case.
Anything you want to add to that?
I've got nothing to add to that.
Yeah.
Stephen took the other piece I think was missing, so.
I was gonna copy paste Stephen's last point, and I always like to point this out for the record. It's great when you see it working, so I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. John, I could probably tell you put some work into this to try and come up with some creative solutions and getting stuff down. So working together to try and find solutions, adding stuff when you don't necessarily need to, you could come in and easily ask for 88%, like understanding the spirit of why we want that green space in the city, trying to find places that you're not doing. Putting together a great presentation in terms of speaking to a case and presenting it, all of those things, kudos. I'm a big process guy. So I appreciate it when it kind of all comes together and you're like, that's how it works. So great job.
I have one question before we take the motion. For the engineers on this project, is it killing you that the loading dock isn't parallel to the right of way? That it's like slightly angled in?
It was killing me a little bit.
Nerd talk, I love it. It's great. All right, so I have a motion on the floor to approve the variance as requested. Oh. Noel got in there, quick gun. All right, we have a motion on the floor by Josh in a second to approve and a second by Noel. Any other discussion? All those who, gosh, why am I screwing this up tonight? All in favor, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
Nay. I was an aye, by the way. I was too focused on my screen up. Aye. All right, so you guys 5-0. Great job. Keep working with John, obviously. I'm sure you will, permits and everything. And thanks for being here tonight. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm glad you won't have to be traffic cop. That's good. There are probably other things you gotta worry about, right? Okay. Good job, everybody. All right, let's move on to item number 4. This is Appeal 2314, consideration with possible action on the variance request submitted by Julianne Kanya.
Very good.
Yes, I got one. Property owner and applicant to create surface parking within the perimeter parking lot landscape setback at 333 South Webster Avenue in District 4. Okay, and you must be Tanya. Right,
Yes, I
have a
am.
seat. Again, same process. So we'll start with John, we'll get to you, we'll discuss, we'll vote. But before we do that, I'm not gonna forget the conflict thing. So number 1, I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter. Say I concur.
I affirm.
Great. Number 2, I have not received any communication from any other person or party about this matter we're about to discuss.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Great. Hearing none, that means we have 5 voting members. Let's go ahead and move on. John, you swear the testimony you're gonna give is gonna be the truth?
Yes.
Great, take us through it.
Okay, so property here at 333 South Webster. No, it's the narrower property here, and over. I want to yourself, we're talking about a multi-family, it's legal non-conforming, but it is legal, to a multi-family right there. So this right here is section 44-1966, section 1C, where parking lots border property line setbacks to the property edge. The parking lot pavement shall meet buffer requirements of 1964. So let me go to 1964. And for any buildings that are 2 stories or more, need to have 25-foot parking buffer between the property line and where your parking is. So those who happen to have been here in 2020, this property was in front of us back then for this driveway entrance that is right along the property line. And it got approved as far as variance back then. Now this has led to in the back here, putting improvements to go ahead and change this gravel parking lot into a paved parking lot. So why are we here with this? I just wanted to go ahead and put in a area that would be approximately 40 feet by 51 feet, 41 by 50 feet on the property between the garage and the house. And going back to our garage is right here, house 40 feet between the house and the garage itself, 51 feet from the north property, 50 feet from the north property line down to the southern property line, leaving about 10 feet in between. With our landscaping code, if you are a multifamily building and you are adjacent to residential on your property line, at that point, you need to go ahead and meet 44-1964. In 44-1964, you need to have a 25-foot landscape buffer between your parking lot and property line. So we're talking about larger multifamilies that comes into play. This is why we're here, why this case comes into play because of a narrower lot here. The multifamilies, because it's what the use is, has to go through this process. If this were to go to code, it would leave 35 feet or so between the already acceptable line up to the north, because I had a variance up there, back down to the south for parking. And back. Apologize. So rather than having the 51 feet or so this way, you'd be down to 35 feet, should allow you for 3 parking stalls rather than 5. I should note this is a 5-unit apartment complex. So technically speaking, you need to have 7 stalls. There's a 2-stall garage and 5 parking stalls. So that's at play. It's a gravel lot right now because it's coming in for the improvements. It has to go ahead and meet the code as far as landscaping and side yard setbacks, and that is the case. Also note one thing too, so the area is in a bit of a odd space as far as how the terrain goes out in this area. There were some concerns as far as what it would mean to go ahead and put in impervious surface back here. The impervious surfaces are fine on this property, even with the changes. But as far as drainage, with everything being so close out in this area, it's something to keep in mind. You have the options to go ahead and potentially go ahead and put out conditions. We don't require grading plans for this because it's so small. It's only 2,000 square feet. But it's something that you potentially go ahead and add on if you wanted to with this. If you were to approve this variance request.
So if I may, the concern is that by making that all impervious, we would create a drainage problem, if I'm reading the elevation right, to the rear.
Potentially. So right now, keep in mind, this is all gravel, so it is impervious right now. It's considered impervious by the DNR. It's
okay.
It does it. I think we can all be that gravel does get soft, so there is some taking of the water, but the DNR considers gravel and pavement to be exactly the same as far as its pervious levels. But just wanted to note, yes, as water goes downhill here, there are a number of properties that have buildings right along the property line itself. But that said, this right here, as far as where the water goes to, is both off this way towards Webster and then downhill towards to the east itself.
It's a hill up at the back of the block.
Yeah, so this right here is, yeah, they're on top of a hill essentially, as far as where this is at. It is higher slightly back to the south. It goes downhill. I think we can picture that if we all taking Webster northbound. In that area, you start to have a pretty gradual hill as you get an approach Walnuts. This is a more pronounced hill in the rear of the property, but I'll note it's about 30 feet or so from where the request was for the improved parking area.
Just for me real quick, the where the cars parked. To the top of that, that's a tree. That's why we're not able to see the gravel.
Right.
Got it. Okay,
Yep.
great. Yep. Okay. I have no questions for John. Does anybody have any questions for John?
And you said there's no grading plan for this particular.
Not with things this small, no.
Okay.
We don't. So that's required normally, no.
And I don't know if this is a fair question or a right question, and feel free to not answer it. In your experience, is this, do you anticipate, I assume you're bringing this up because you anticipate this might be an issue?
I bring it up, we don't have any sworn testimony, but people discuss this as
Okay.
far as issues go. I'll note as far as it goes, where other properties have buildings adjacent, they're higher than this property here.
Yep.
When it comes to our building code in general, you can't create issues as far as new construction for putting in a parking lot compared, so any applicant can't say, I'm gonna make, say, 3 feet of fill right here and then create a problem with runoff. Don't intend that to be the case, but we have plenty of people go ahead and bring in, say, just typical driveway requests, and we don't ask for grading plans of those when it's this small.
would it be within our power, and would it be reasonable in your eyes with your experience with construction and land for us to put in if we were to approve it, and that's an if, of course, for us to stipulate that they do not raise the level beyond a small margin?
I think that's reasonable, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, John.
And John, could you go back to one of the slides that shows the existing asphalt that was added after the action? And I'm assuming that was added after the action in 2020 or something.
This photo was taken back in 2020, so yes.
So I mean, it wouldn't make sense for somebody paving that parking area beyond this asphalt to dramatically change the grade of that, right? Because it would seem to be,
Unless their basement's wet.
yeah, I suppose at the edges maybe.
But I mean, you're essentially right, at least in my mind.
Any other questions? I got the chair power for a moment. Any other questions for John? All right, okay.
Was it fun?
Ooh, yeah, the power is just.
Keep going. I can hand it
No,
over for this
thank you,
lap.
yeah.
All right, Vice. Okay, ready for testimony? All right, so state your name, address for the record, and then you swear that the testimony you provide will be the truth.
My name is Julianne Kanya, and property address is 333 South Webster Avenue, Green Bay.
All right. State your case.
I'm just trying to improve the parking situation and gravel. I don't know if you ever tried to snow gravel, but I have to do a lot of it, and it's a nightmare. And it would be a nice hard surface. Everybody can turn around and maneuver safely. 5 units, 5 spots. And I can't go any smaller than that. And my lot is only like 60 feet wide. So unfortunately, it takes up most of, side to side.
Are you the property owner?
Yeah.
Got it. It's a 5 units. There's 5 different families or 5 different rented units, so
Correct.
basically like an apartment.
Correct.
Okay.
And as far as I'm adding 3 inches of asphalt, so it wouldn't be a dramatically huge increase to create a runoff problem. It's a 150-year-old house. I have water in the basement. So,
The whole neighborhood's got one.
yeah. So I don't know if you have any other questions.
So essentially, is it gonna be any bigger than the gravelled area is now? It's essentially just taking the gravelled area and paving it?
Correct, it's exactly the same size as the gravel area there.
Okay, you're not cutting down any trees or
No.
increasing the size. Okay, all right, thank you.
Barb, Josh, Noel, any questions for the applicant before we get to your general discussion?
Stephen took my questions, so.
There you go.
Sorry.
Love it. Okay, so we're gonna discuss typically, and then if we have any other questions, we'll ask you, and then we'll move to a vote. We'll see how this goes, okay? All right, any general discussion? Anybody want to take a stab at this? Where are we at?
Well, I think if there hadn't been the previous variance granted. Basically, there would be the ability, what's the width of the lot? It's about 60 feet, so there'd be a 10-foot strip in the middle that could be paved because you got a 25-foot setback for parking. With a landscape buffer for multifamily. It's clear to me that the zoning code as written wasn't intended to apply to a 60-foot wide multifamily parcel. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, should you be able to park on a property? Yeah, exceptional circumstances. Yeah, I guess the fact is that the zoning code is obviously written for much larger parcels than this one. And doesn't work. And so I think that there's a condition there. Folks should be able to provide a quality product for their residents. I think the difference between gravel and asphalt, maybe in this market doesn't make that much difference because it's so crazy for apartments right now, but there'll be a point where it's competitive and that's going to be an advantage to you as a property owner to have a nicer parking lot. I don't think this is hurting the neighborhood in any way, especially if we add some element to the motion that talks about don't change the grade substantially. That's gonna cause runoff problems for the neighboring properties. And again, I think the hardship here is that, the permitted use is just on a too small a lot. So I think the case is made, and I think I'm comfortable supporting it.
Copy paste was one step.
Happy paste.
All right.
Yep. I would as well. I would also add that this is another one of those instances where there's actually not just an absence of detriment. There's an improvement in the neighborhood from gravel to asphalt. Overall, I think that's good for everyone's property values and for the look of the neighborhood.
Yeah, actually, snow blowing on gravel is not only challenging, but once in a while you fling a piece of gravel. pretty hard.
Yeah, and hard on your snow blower too.
All right, Josh, you want to add?
I guess the only other thing I would add is that if we were to deny this variance request, we'd be basically telling the property owner that we no longer want this use of this property. So I echo everything that's been said.
Yeah, and this is a good example of, and I think the last one as well, hardship, it's not self-imposed, right? The hardship comes from the use of the land and the property and how it's being used. It's not something I'm creating, it's the whole thing, the property itself, is a hardship in terms of things, so. I think it's a good case for approval too. Anyone wanna make a motion?
I motion to approve
Steven, motion?
with the stipulation that they ensure that they don't create a drainage problem,
Is
keeping
that,
it relatively level.
is that,
Too broad.
is that too broad? Like, should we be more specific with that, or just no raising of air, like, what do you guys think there? Cause I'd like that we can put.
I'd like to hear John. Yeah, do you have a recommendation?
So that's the general notion for any improvements, that you can't go ahead and create a drainage problem. There wasn't one there.
Okay.
When this is brought up, I just wanted to note, as far as this is a more precarious area because everything is so small. It's your call if you want to go ahead and note that. I think it's fine. Is it redundant? Yeah. Okay. It is.
Okay.
I think we would need it if we were like creating like a gradient rule or anything like that, but I think that's implied with the fact that it's, right? So.
Sure. And then I'll just simply motion to approve it as it's written.
Okay, great, thanks, Stephen. Anyone
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Stephen to approve the application as written. Yes, and then, thank you. And then seconded by Barb. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
Aye. All those
Aye.
say nay. Okay, so 5-0, so you're good. So thank you for going through the process. I know it can be, thank you for being last. It's always not fun to be last, so I appreciate it. Yeah, and then just continue again. I say this every single time. Just continue working with John. His team's awesome. Any permits that are needed, so we don't end up back in here because your contractor did something wrong, or whatever. So just stay in contact.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming out. We appreciate it. All right, so we are through the general items here. We are going into section F, which is informational. We're gonna do a little discussion about future options for board training. Can I add before you do it, or you want to just lead it?
Oh, you definitely can add. I'm just gonna sit on the other side of the table, so it's more of a conversation.
So I joined Eagle and John for a discussion this week, and so I think what we're gonna discuss is, look, we're all citizens here, Noel, some of you deal, lawyer, whatever, some of us deal in this. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, the legal side of things, Barb's been on council before, but let's say I leave and another regular citizen comes in, I can't be expected to be a zoning pro, I can't be expected to be a law pro, I can't be, I'm just not dealing with it, so. Training, and I think last month's meeting for me was difficult because start, stop, training, I want them to be able to perform what they're doing, I want us to be compliant within, legal stuff. But how much of that start, stop, or what we're trying to do that's happening in the moment can be alleviated with ongoing training or optional training. And so I said, let's create an informational item on this week's agenda, and let's just spend a couple minutes, we don't need to be here for an hour, but just discussing how does this board's absence of you, but also considering you on this board, how do we make sure this board doesn't revert or go backwards, or if we bring new people on, they feel not only are they being successful where we are, but they also can take us even further in being a great example of what a zoning board of appeals should look like in terms of process, understanding what we're trying to accomplish. So that's what I wanted to just discuss. There's some suggestions, whatever, that's why this is on here. Okay? We're also volunteering our time, so at the same time, we can't just train every month and get better, right? Okay,
I just want to say that things went incredibly smoothly tonight.
oh my gosh.
And it's almost like, it reminds me of when a group forms, it's like the norming and storming, and we went through kind of a storming, storming, and then performing, right?
Yep.
So we kind of had a storming part, and we performed well tonight, there wasn't starting and stopping, and
Yeah.
it's significantly better.
During the last one, I just turned around, I was like, I'm so proud of everybody tonight. But I'm serious, again, if you know, you've been on second longest than me, I would say, and where we were previously to where we are, even the process that we've introduced. Like going through the 5 things, we're getting way better at that. The process that we have, we're complying with legal requirements in terms of, you know, swearing people in, stating names for records. So while we've added some formality, we're still, I think, providing a service to the community. It's not super stuffy. So I think kudos to everybody, staff, legal, online. I appreciate you guys being here in person as well. I think that adds an element of speed and connection as well. So I just think from where we were 2 years ago to where we are now, even 3 years ago, it's a significant improvement, and even month to month. Right, last month to this month. So great job, everybody. I think we're doing great work. So let's keep it up. Well, let's talk about training. Thank you, Barb, for calling that out.
And I definitely wanna reiterate that. I think everything's been going very well, like lots of improvements are being made, and last month was tough with the, you know, starting out with the needing the interpreter. And that process is very challenging, and that's one of the things that we will do a little bit of training on, coming up, is just kind of, you know, we anticipate that will come up again, and so like, what's the best way as a board for us to navigate through those?
Legally required to provide that.
Correct.
So it's not something we can say, it gotta go away. We have to do that. So we have to look at what that process looks like to improve it.
Then, I was at a school district meeting, the school board had a meeting, they had a simultaneous interpreter, which was very helpful. Because, but then when they did do the breakouts among the groups, then it was not a simultaneous interpreter. But is that something that's a possibility?
It's potentially, part of what, and we won't spend too much time on this tonight, because it's not, you know, particularly what we're, you know, aiming to chat about, but one of the things that we're kind of looking into is, you know, we obviously had to do it over the phone because of the time constraints. But theoretically, it might be possible in the future to have someone in person, and it's much easier to do a simultaneous translation when somebody's in person and the board's in person, and you're not dealing with that hybrid element as much. So it's possible, it's just something that, you know, we're all kind of navigating through this together.
I'm glad to hear that's a legal requirement though.
Just out of curiosity, I would assume that the other boards and councils in the city have this same problem with public comment. How do they handle it? Is that something we can copy?
With, you mean with public comment on the quasi judicial matters?
Well, I assume that the city has a requirement to hear people who maybe don't speak English as well in other councils.
That's really a much larger conversation, and that really truly is, goes far beyond the scope of what we're.
Okay, yeah. I wasn't asking whether or not they should. I was just asking if they're doing that already, can we just do what they're doing?
They're not.
Okay, fair enough.
Huh. Look at us being trendsetters here, guys. Look at us. Innovators now.
So, but you know, we have been trying to do some incremental training because we didn't want to be overwhelming everybody with like, let's run through training on all 5 elements once a month or you know, once every couple months, anything like that. But we also want to make sure that we are hitting some of these concepts in a little bit more detail to make sure everybody's clear about what we mean by a hardship, what the preservation of property rights is really supposed to mean. Are we, you know, do we all have the same understanding as a board when we're applying, so we're applying the same kind of standards? And so we've been kind of trying to feel out the best way to do the training, kind of feeling like maybe the one thing at a time isn't maybe the best way. Also got some feedback from Tommy that it's been a minute since there's been any kind of comprehensive training that you've got as a group.
It's before COVID.
Yeah, so it's, and I believe the resources that we have are from UW Stevens Point. We have some that are available, that are, more broad. And then if anybody, if there were more specific trainings, that would cost some money.
Right.
I actually got some training last year. I sat in on 2 classes that the chair had set up, and I think it was through Stevens Point.
Right, so UW Stevens Point offers periodical classes. Where it's a 3 to 4 hour session. Where they talk about different broad topics as far as zoning goes. And then going to Lindsay's point, there are special more paid courses that get into very specific aspects of zoning. It's my understanding that for new members, typically what should be provided is what's called a zoning handbook. It's a very long 200+ page handbook. I see the face right there. Yeah. But as far as getting to the degree and specifics, it does do a very good job of that.
I've never gotten a copy of it.
No, and that's where you're gonna get 2 things, 2 more things here, just to make everybody happy here. One is the zoning handbook. That should go out, but hasn't gone up. 2 is, there's 2 YouTube videos that are both 8 and 10 minutes long. And then, Steve, you might have been referring to potentially. They're also pretty broad as far as basics that most zoning boards get, and I know it's gone out in other times in the past to folks. That also touch upon pretty broad basics of the role of this board and variances in general. Those 3 things are what the UW Stevens Point and the Ascension go ahead and put out in the world, saying, take this and run with it, and there are some more specific courses.
Right.
Yeah. In addition, there's been some talk as far as saying, so I believe the both of you happen to have gone to in February 2019, there was a meeting over at Hotel Northlands.
Yeah.
That was put on by UW Stevens Point. They happened to put one on here in Wapaka here or about 2 weeks ago. They do it periodically. We've reached out to them to say, would you mind coming back and doing this
Yeah,
again?
they packed the ballroom over there, and it was, it was like not only us, but it was like all the metro area zoning boards, and then there was folks from all over Northeast Wisconsin there. So-
Right, and so we're pushing on 5 years now. So we're gonna ask to go ahead and see if they can come back here again. And
Yeah, that
put
was
this
really
on.
good.
It's a similar, what was presented, you'll see as far as the presentation. I think it's similar in most cases, but as far as the obviously the one-on-one conversations in the group will go ahead and change as far as the questions go. So we've reached out to them. And I'll note that this is something we can go ahead as far as our discussion here goes. I'll note to all 5 of us, 6 as far as Corey as well. We'll go ahead and email out YouTube videos. The city of Pierre back last year looked at those 2 videos, asked their members to go ahead and watch before the meeting, and then did something like this similar. Meeting was over as far as regular business, came back. What questions do you have? Like, note the spot, do a timestamp with that 5 minutes and 30 seconds in. We'll go ahead and review that question right there, have that back and forth with that. So that's a possibility something we can do here next month. Just that's out there, it's readily available. You can all go ahead and check and answer that.
The only who gets to call on me.
Oh, you're good. It's an informal thing.
Informal.
There's no formality to this.
I would not want to do it at the end of the meeting, only because we don't know when the meeting is gonna end. And I think we have to be kind of sharp. So some of our meetings that have gone till 8 o'clock at night, you're not feeling real sharp at that point to be taking a lot of you out. So I would rather have a separate meeting for that. Or do it, start the meeting earlier if it's possible, do it prior.
Yeah, you could schedule the meeting with folks, the petitioners that night, and just say, don't come until 5:15 or something like that, and we can start it.
Even
4:30, you do 45 minutes on it or something.
Who could we?
there was this idea, and I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead here, but there was discussion about doing, like. There's the meeting and keeping the meeting, and like, let's say every quarter, we do an extra meeting on a different scope. It's extra time from you guys from a volunteer perspective, but it's a meeting dedicated, it's on like an agenda, it's public meeting knowledge, so if even public wants to come and they want to learn more about it, which I think is a huge gap that's not being addressed right now, you know, we could see it when people know how to prove a case, and then we can see it when people don't know, right? So that's not what we're talking about, but by making it public, you might have one or two people that might be future applicants that want to come and listen to some of the discussion. But because of open meeting laws, we would have to schedule, it would have to be recorded, we'd have to be willing to ask dumb questions on the record. And if no one cares about that, if someone's on YouTube and they want to watch our training, it's better for everybody in a way, because we're all just getting better. So that is an option that can be explored as well. So that way we're not taking up any of our meeting time with training. But I said, I don't want to volunteer anybody's time in terms of saying, well, give more time to this.
Well, I think if we get our hands on the handbooks and watch these YouTube videos and maybe have a couple more conversations like this at the tail end of meetings, maybe we get to a point where we're like, we're good to go for now until Point comes back and does their full day, their full, not full day, but their full workshop. And you know, and maybe that's good for now.
And I mean, I don't think, I mean, at least for my part, the volunteer time for this is, compared to other things I volunteered for, is relatively low.
Okay.
In terms of the commitment of my time. I would be happy to come into a quarterly meeting / potluck and and you know, and discuss some of these things rather than doing it on the night when our you know, when the petitioners are in.
Well, and I know too, we've had conversations over the years as we're going through these, and it's like, you know, how many times are we gonna see the widen the driveway for semi trucks in an industrial zone petition until you guys change the freaking code, you know? And it's like, some of these things that we do see regularly are screaming for code revisions, right? And it's like, you know, we maybe, you know, we could, if we could talk about that sort of stuff once in a while too, as part of maybe some training, I would love that. And I know it's like, you know, yeah, there's 800 revisions that need to happen to that code or whatever at any given time, but you know, thinking about some of those things so that our future selves or future members of this board, you know, can this, you know, not have to deal with some of them because they're fixed now, right? You know, and I if we could do those two things, I would be much more eager to spend some additional time.
What does that sound like for everybody? Like, what if it was an open discussion about some training, but also, because we've gotten in, you know, in the past where we're not a legislative body, but if we could have a discussion where we could talk about things that we're potentially seeing on a regular, we could talk a bit about our process. I think that's a really good thing. If we did that once every 3 months, like I would be pumped about that, because then we're not.
I mean, just put it out as an agenda item. We're going to talk about training. We're going to talk about, you know, things with the zoning code. We're going to, you know, talk about the audio visual system in the room or whatever.
The training director, like whatever it is, like. That training thing.
And we put together a regular agenda, just like we do for any other meeting, because it's going to be a real meeting. So we could put down what we want, and as long as it's there soon enough, I mean.
So this is where we get into a little bit of the issue that we've kind of been having an ongoing discussion about just having kind of so part of what needs to happen when we have a public meeting, particularly with respect to the notice, is that the notice has to be very specific about what we're talking about, so that it puts people in the community, it makes them aware of what specifically the board is going to be talking about. So we can't put something like, you know, general discussion of ordinances or something on, we would have to have.
But you could have review of quarterly report of, or annual report of last year's actions grouped by chapter and verse of what was being petitioned against, and say, wow, look, 12 of them were on this topic. Let's discuss that, see if there isn't a communication we can pass on to somebody else
I think we could make it sufficiently specific to fulfill that requirement.
So this board is different than, some of our standing committees. So for example, like the Parks Committee has an agenda and specific things that that programs that it does within a calendar year. So the Parks Director can provide a regular report to the Parks Committee about the activities of the Parks Committee, because that's part of what, it's his reporting on the activities of his department in relation to the budget and everything else that's set by council. This body is different because this is primarily quasi judicial. The only thing that you guys are looking at is the appeals themselves. So I'm looking currently at the actual jurisdiction that the board has. It's to hear appeals of decisions made by the zoning administrator, to hear appeals, to hear other matters referred to it. So not things that you as a board want to discuss, but if it's referred to the board by other entities or by staff. And then asking for assistance from other departments, commissions, and boards. So there's no place under the jurisdiction of this board to provide for kind of a freewheeling discussion of what potential code changes we might like to see,
I
because
disagree completely. There's two
So-
things that jumped out at me that said exactly that. Responding to requests from another group for input, like the plan commission or something says, hey, you see all these petitions, are there areas that we might want to look at and make changes to the zoning code based on the experiences you're having at the zoning board of appeals? Or the other case is like specifically asking for help, like, help us, we're dealing with all these things on the same issue. Change the code and make it easier on our lives.
And I think furthermore, there's also nothing in there that specifically says we can't. And in the spirit of ARB, we're trying to say yes as much as we can within the rule set. And I think we're not going to do anyone harm. We're going to follow all the open records laws. We'll be specific in our agendas. The most we can do is make a recommendation. That's it. And that might be just a letter. So I fail to see the harm.
She's saying that, if I'm hearing you correctly, that let's say it's the plan, they're not a quasi judicial, because we're quasi judicial, we can't make referrals to legislative changes. Is that what you're saying?
sure.
So if we were like a typical committee that was not quasi judicial, that would be appropriate, because we're ruling things, yes?
Right, so, that's correct. And to address the point that you were making, Noel, so it's, in those particular instances that you mentioned, those would be specific requests coming from other places to address specific items. So not like, hey, take a look at the code and flag the things that need closer examination, but literally like, look at this section of the code and tell us how many variances you've had on it, something to that effect. Not this kind of freewheeling discussion that we're talking about.
Well, since there's not going to be any decision out of it that has any legal binding,
Stephen, hold on.
I fail to see what the problem is.
Stephen, she was finishing. Hold on one second. Let her
Oh,
finish.
my apologies.
The other point of it is that the plan commission actually is the body that does the legislative changes to our zoning code. So if there are problems that we are seeing that you as a board are seeing on a regular basis, you absolutely have a right to flag them within the context of a discussion of a particular variance and say, hey, John, we've been seeing these a lot lately. Is that something that you as staff can look into more closely and possibly bring up as a legislative change? And then it's on staff to decide whether to do that and to bring it to plan commission and have plan commission as the legislative body determine whether to put that forward then on to council, who ultimately will make that determination.
Right.
Though this body is not set up to have those same kind of conversations. The jurisdiction of this body is much more limited than a body like planning commission or one of our standing committees.
Absolutely, but again, we're not making any decisions or voting on anything in those contexts. And that sounds a lot like prior restraint of speech. I mean, strictly speaking, the conversation we're having here doesn't fall into that definition either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, if I may, you're reading this very rigidly. We are not a machine that you plug, variances into and get yes or no's out of, and that's it. That's, I mean,
I guess, yeah.
Hold on, Bob's got a hand. No,
Nice.
sorry. There you go.
See what you did there.
Go ahead.
So I understand Lindsay, what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And I have always thought that staff should be picking up on some of the things that are happening here to see. And that wasn't happening with the older staff. Now we have this new guy over here. And maybe he could bring some of these forward. It seems like there's a path to it. There's a path.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind giving it to John. That's fine.
the path is through staff. So
Yep.
can't we could say, gee, this seems like a variance that we've been working on a lot. I wonder if staff could. What could we ask them?
Sure, so, and you know, we've had these discussions at length within our department. It's just so everyone's clear, this isn't me unilaterally kind of enforcing any. My own will on the body or anything like that. We've discussed the potential for putting something on the agenda if somebody says, hey, we're seeing a lot of these variances, for you all to have a discussion about those variances. And then from that, make some recommendation to staff. But the conclusion is that that's not really appropriate. That's not really within the jurisdiction itself is very clear. There are only these 4 things that the board is designed to address. And putting items on the agenda for discussion for its own accord and making some kind of recommendation to staff for some changes to happen down the road is not within the jurisdiction as it's written in the code. So
Is it written anywhere that we can't?
Wait, hold
Let
on.
her finish.
you absolutely can make those suggestions to staff. You can do it in the meeting. You can do it again, when I say in the meeting, I mean in the context of a discussion of a particular variance. You can shoot John an email after the meeting that says, hey, John, we keep seeing this same variance. Is your staff looking into this at all? And John can give you an answer by email. And if it ends up being something that needs to go for legislative changes, again, that'll go to plan commission. These are things that you are able to raise individually with staff. They're just not appropriate for
Okay,
a noticed item on the agenda for discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the risk assessment in that? Where is the possible jeopardy in us doing that?
Hold on, Stephen. Noel had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see that well.
I know, it's all good. Here. There we go. Sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, do we have to be convened in a regular meeting to talk?
Yes. Anything that relates to city business has to be noticed as an open meeting, and there has to be an agenda about some kind of notice of what specifically will be discussed.
Follow up. I mean, can staff put on the agenda request, for our input, or can the plan commission ask us to come and comment on things that we're saying, or things like that? I guess what I'm trying to get to maybe is it sounds like what we're asking of you. Can you figure out a way to let us do
Yes,
this?
yes.
Because that's maybe what I'd like to see happen.
I will say, it's been fairly clear to me what you all have been wanting to happen for quite some time now. The problem is I understand why you all want to have the conversations. I understand it would potentially make things a lot easier if we could all just have discussion on recurring issues. If we could have that on the agenda every month to just talk about what I get that would be super convenient and helpful potentially. But that unfortunately runs afoul of open meeting laws. And it potentially exposes the city to fines for not complying with those laws. And it's not something that can be done. Now, what you specifically asked for, if staff asks for the board to weigh in on a specific matter, or plan commission asks for the board to weigh in on a specific matter or a specific ordinance, yes, that can happen, because that falls within those other matters or those requests for assistance that are within the board's jurisdiction. But those have to come from those external places.
So if I'm reading you right, the discussion we're having right now about our legal right to have a discussion isn't legal. Because this isn't
This wasn't
talking about training. This is talking about what we can and cannot do. And it's not specifically put down on the agenda. So you have to understand that when I look at this from a risk assessment standpoint, I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be, but I'm failing to see who would bring charges for this, how it violates open meetings laws, or how we can even have this discussion now if we're clearly in violation because it's not on the agenda and it's not that specific. So
future options for training.
If you all don't want training on your jurisdiction, that is absolutely fine.
that's kind of not the point, but yeah.
It's about training on our jurisdiction.
Well, we do have a lawyer here, so on the flip side, if we were your client, is there a legal way around this?
I don't think we can talk about that.
Let's shut that down.
I'm kidding. The one thing that just to follow up on what you were saying, what I thought was interesting, because we discussed this at length as well, when I was in that meeting. Because I asked the question, well, if we as a board all went to that training in 2019, why is that one not recorded or whatever? And that's because it's not the city of Green Bay as its own entity facilitating it. It's a college training class that we're able to go to. So because it's being facilitated by a college, that we can all go there, we can discuss what's happening and fictitiously talk about scenarios. But because it's being advised by legal and city staff, everything has to comply with an open meetings laws. Did I do a good job summarizing that kind of?
Yes, the only clarification that I would make is that going forward at a training like that, if you were all going to attend or a significant subset of you were going to attend, we would still publish a notice
Right.
that you all were going to the training and the training was on this subject matter. The parts about it not being recorded and everything else, that's absolutely accurate because it's not put on by us, so it doesn't have to be recorded in the same way that all of our meetings are recorded. But we do still have an obligation to publish a notice anytime there might be a group of you meeting and things relating to city business might come up. And even if we're talking hypotheticals at a training, it's potentially possible it could be like, oh, that's kind of like that one we had, and then suddenly we ventured into city business. And so it's just better to have it publicly noticed.
I think to move on, because I'm on the same page as everybody here, but I think we need to move forward in terms of this idea of referring consistent things. I think what we just need to do is like, as a team. Sean, right? You're on this team as well. You've got a part to play. I'm sure you want all citizens to be able to live in Green Bay and do all these great things, right? So if you're here and you happen to see something happening frequently, right, then he has complete ability to talk to whoever about code changing, right? We just can't say it. He can't.
No, we
He
can have
take
it as a discussion item, like what's wrong with the zoning code.
We can say in the
We
meeting.
can all write a manifesto and email it in.
She said, we can say, hey, John, this, we can say, hey, whatever, but like an actual general agenda discussion item, ultimately, that's not our job. So John, in the course of even our regular appeals agendas, if he's seeing certain things, he can make note of it and he can work through the systems and channels to potentially change that, but we can't refer or have an agenda item specifically about that. It's not our function. Does that make sense, John?
It makes sense.
John?
Notes as a staff here, when we'll talk in this room, for the legislative part, for planning commission, we do recognize if there are items that can come up consistently.
Okay.
I can know there was one here today that came up now for the past 3 meetings.
Yeah.
And
Was that
so.
different?
I can't, we don't talk about specifics.
No, we're not talking specifics.
All right, let's few meetings here.
And
It's
on
a
top
come
of
up.
that, we can just kind of, we'll keep moving forward, so there's that. That was also part of the angle of getting the alder, when she was an alder, involved, because they are the legislative body, they are noticed. On here, hey, this is in your district, so that report that I was advocating for to be generated, where it kept track of all the variances, could be data sorted. In my opinion, even if it's a year, an annual report, data sorted by district, sent off the alderman. If they look at it and their constituents have, oh my gosh, I had 18 variances and all of them were widening driveways. I'm elected official for that area, I could possibly look at that and be like, hey, I should talk to plan and say, hey, everybody in my district can't widen their driveway, what can we do about it, right? That's their job. So to me, that's why that report was, I think, critical. We're not referring anything. All we're doing is sharing data of what we've seen. As long as that data can be aggregated in a way that's not overwhelming with 75 different pieces of code. Hey, this is a driveway issue, right? Yes, there's different types of variances, but as long as it's coded widening driveway or drive, you know what I'm saying? It has to be broad enough to be able to capture information that you can put together, but it can't be so specific where it's like lengthening driveway, widening drive, because then it's like 75 different versions of data, then it's useless. These are driveway issues or whatever, and if there's a way to create an annual report that we could share with alders, we're not referring anything, right? And we're good.
That he can share.
He
Yeah,
can share
yeah,
it,
we do it, we keep track of that, so,
and then share with the alders.
yeah.
I'm serious,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like,
yes, yeah.
Yes, that's their voting people are coming in
Yeah.
requesting stuff, yeah.
Just to tell you the process, though, as for Alder, that usually what we get is there's the committees, something would go to a committee where it would be fully discussed. Then it would come to council where it would be fully explained if someone asked for it to be explained, because they'd have to pull that agenda item. So as a group, committee of the whole rarely meets where all of us would just, oh, here's a report, let's just all talk about that. That does not happen. But it's something that went to plan commission and was voted upon in plan, then would go to city council. So I don't know.
Couldn't an alder also go to plan commission though? If I got a report and I as an alder go to plan commission and say, hey, in my district.
You could do a communication.
Or you could do
Yeah.
a communication, say, hey, I want this item to go.
I would like this, yeah, you would do a communication and ask it to come up in an agenda item, and then you typically might show up there. Is that okay? Am I going to?
You're fine.
Okay,
I will just bring everybody
Back
back
to
to the
training.
topic of training now, if I can.
let's do that.
Training the.
I'm training and
The training for alders is a subject of a different meeting. So. Looking at the resources that John threw up there before, with the manual and the YouTube videos. And, you know, reaching out to Stephen's point to possibly have a more in-depth training here. So we've kind of gone over that. What are your feelings on additional trainings from us on more specifics? Do you want to plan for a separate meeting? Do you want to? You know, if we don't structure something, there may still be times when Logan or I are like, you know what, we really do still need to train on this, even if the board hasn't specifically asked for it. So we may just have to throw it on the agenda if the board hasn't, you know, expressed to us how you want to receive that training, you know, the best way. So I really would like to kind of circle back and revisit that topic as far as, you know, yes, you'll have these resources coming from John. But just in general, what are the preferences? Separate meetings, beginning of meetings, all of that.
I think tacking them on again, some meetings like this is perfectly reasonable and.
like this,
Yeah.
yeah, because guess what? It's 6:30.
But if it ends up being 8, it's on the agenda.
Yeah,
item.
Well, then
Yeah.
maybe we punt it and we just say,
Can we
look,
say
let's table that
It was
until the next time.
meeting.
Can we do that?
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So if we're exhausted and
Yeah.
fried, we can say that.
Okay, so to recap, a couple things. One, the handbook and the YouTube videos. I think there's an onboarding process.
Somebody's probably got a quiz for those too, you know.
I'm serious though. But I actually am serious though. Like there needs to be an onboarding process for this thing, whether it's a paid certificate. I'm not spending taxpayer money, but You know what I mean? Like, there needs to be, hey, watch these videos, do this before you come to your first meeting. And whether it's like hand over heart, I did it, and they're good, or if there is a silly quiz, but I didn't get any of that when I came on. I was learning on the fly.
Been winging it since I came on.
Right, so I do think there needs to be, this is a different, there needs to, for everybody's sake, there needs to be an onboarding process, and there needs to be a commitment for someone on this board that's coming on and say, hey, you're gonna go through 10 hours of training. You know, and that's it, whatever it is, 5 hours, 2 hours, I don't care what it is, that should be something when you join, you go through, and I think the handbook being given, whether you read it in depth or not, and then watching those 2 YouTube videos, if that's what we decide is part of the onboarding process or whatever, that's done. So then that training is not necessary. You have it as a recourse. I can always request it. There's these informal trainings that we're having for like a agenda item. If we have time at the end of the meeting, we can go over, hey, let's talk about preservation of intent this week, and we can talk about.
Yeah,
that.
and then you just say, and if the Stevens Point thing happens anywhere within a 50-mile radius during your term and you haven't taken it already, you gotta sign up.
Well, and that's what I was gonna get to last, so you're there. Technically, we all sign up for 3-year terms. So it should be every 3 years, you go through that training. Every 3 years.
Oh, yeah, each person does, but and it will be rolling training
Yeah.
because the person's on this year,
Right.
this year, so the training has to be offered every year.
But
Well, because you're gonna get the onboarding and everything. That's more of like a higher level, like
I see,
overall thing. As long as you've gone through it once during your term, I don't care if it's your 3rd year or your 1st year, you've still been onboarded,
okay,
right? You've still got resources. All that stuff. We've still got our informal training happening regularly to keep you up and running, but every 3 years, it's like going and getting your driver's test
Okay.
again. Like, I would love to go back and do that training again, and that sounds crazy, but it's been 5 years and I would love a refresher. on
5
all
years
that.
is a horizon that I can buy. I don't wanna do it.
Every 3 years, okay, so maybe once every 5 years, I don't know. But then that Stevens Point thing is a reoccurring thing as well, and I think you've got all these great layers that are working together.
Yeah.
Noel votes for 5 years, I still vote for 3. 'Cause
I would say since the terms of 3, it almost has to be 3, but
I'll go with.
Oh, Barb, well, don't, listen,
No, got
think about the future though, you know?
No,
You might wanna go.
So I'm going with 3.
Alright, so do we like that structure? Is that something we can commit to?
Makes sense to start that way, and that's just.
Yep.
Can we do that?
yep, love to have all that training and the book. I send the books PDF, yes, no?
Yes, yes.
Perfect.
It's been binding for us, so we've got a.
Oh, book online.
You don't
Yeah.
want it on the.
I want it in my hand.
We want.
See, and I don't want a physical book.
Oh,
so-
Like,
And
I'm just
book.
looking and have it. And I mean,
Understood.
oh, thank you.
Handbook.
And books.
So you
as
can
in-
flip to the
not
section, now we always
in
get stuck on this. I look at these things too, and it's like, sometimes it's like, I get it, and then other times it's like, gosh, I'd love to see 3 examples right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you can check it in when we're done, so that way
We
we don't
could.
have to reprint them all the time.
Right, so it could be in a hard cover, right, and a property of the city and
Yeah.
you could check it, oh, but then I can still write it, and everyone would love it. Because I would have such.
It would be like a used textbook in college.
It would be.
So you like, fuck this.
You all received an email with a PDF, if you'd like to have it as well. And then the 2 YouTube links. Let me know a response back. If you want a hard copy, I'll make it work for you.
Yeah, thank you, John.
I would love to wrap this conversation up in the journey. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, just go ahead on the whole Stevens Point every 3 years as far as like goes. As far as making this become an order. We will highly encourage it. We want that to happen as far as that goes. And I can keep on notifying the board here, hey, there's one in
And
one.
maybe
time,
the
there's one
mayor's
in one
office
later.
takes that into consideration when they're making appointments for continuation. Oh, this person never took the training, there's a scofflaw. Things, we're not gonna reappoint them to the Board of Appeals.
My computer died. The other thing is, and we can talk about this a different time, I do think that we should not stop looking at training for this side of the things. So if there's like, hey, you're going to the Board of Appeals, right? Even what she said today when reading our jurisdiction, it's like verbiage matters. You've made a decision, no, you can't do this thing, and they're appealing the thing, and that's why they're here, right? Like that simple verbiage lets people know the city's made a decision. You represent the city, you represent them, and they're appealing your decision. So they're here to appeal. Using those words, I think, is critical, but is there a video they can watch that is like, hey, when you go make a case at a board of appeals, here's an example, right? And it's got like the person, if it's the thing, this is a good example of what this looks like, or that takes them through the 5
Yeah,
points.
that's a really nice.
So hey, before you go, this is what a presented case looks like, whether we actually create that video or someone does a little Google research, maybe that exists out there that we could then give the applicants. Because you're doing a great job, it seems like, trying to fend off people coming before they're ready. And I noticed on the application is like, have you had a conversation with the planning team? No, do not do anything, right? Yes, cool. You see what I'm saying? So there's the other side of the things that we need to provide as much information so they have a positive experience as well before they get here.
Right, and for most of those folks who have come here tonight, they even know, we can go to YouTube right now and check out April and March. I've gone back and said, look at what this board has done. See what they go ahead and say yes to. Go ahead and make your argument to go ahead and meet those 5 requirements right there.
Yeah.
You can tell based off that.
One start thinking about that.
Yes.
I don't know if they get the 5 requirements, because on the application, it's still a 3-step test.
No, you get that on the application, it's a 7-page application now, they see that on there as well.
Yeah.
So they don't have to write down every last one of them, it's still a 3-step test. But they're noted when we have our conversations.
Yeah.
It's meeting those
Yeah.
5 right there.
But maybe there's a video of someone giving. an
There might be,
example.
yeah.
So I don't know if we can look at that, but any information is good, which is what I was saying to them. The end of the day, all of us are working together as a team. We're volunteering our time. Your city staff, you're here late to try and make this good, but it's citizens. Like, these are the things that come together. If we can get this humming, then it's like, hey, people actually love the city of Green Bay and it's great place to live. And they work with us. They're also stern in certain ways, but like, we understand why, and they're letting us down gracefully, so. It's all good, rah-rah speech.
Tommy
That's
Everman,
good timing.
zoning YouTuber.
No. That's my next career. But seriously, from my perspective, is there anything we need to say about that, or not yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay, cool. Great. All right,
Is that the end of that?
that's it.
Move to adjourn.
So what was it, moved and seconded?
I'll second it.
Oh, all day. Again, last thing, we vote. Stephen, it was great to see you in person. I'm sorry for the Cub troubles. Great job, everybody, tonight. Lots of progress. It's my favorite word in the world, and it was great to see a lot of friendly faces in person. So thank you for that. All right, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?